Hey, happy Tuesday and welcome, as I say, welcome to my little world for a moment. I'm glad you're with me today. You know, you probably heard the old adage, look before you leap. I often think about a young friend of mine, actually was in the youth group a few years younger than me when I was working with the church as a youth minister. Short time later, he dove off the bank of a river into the stream, thinking it was deeper than it was, fractured his neck, left him with fairly permanent injury. He'll walk a little bit crooked for the rest of his life after some nerve damage. Look before you leap can be pretty good advice along the way. But sometimes we have trouble seeing what the future really holds, don't we? In a moment, we make a rash decision, we jump into something, or we just believe things are going to be a certain way before we get into it and hope for the very best. And maybe sometimes that is the best we can do. But you know, in the midst of some of his teaching, Jesus made it very clear that there are some challenging circumstances to being someone who would follow him. And that's true of following any leader, but Jesus wanted to make it very clear. I think some people think, well, if I follow Jesus, everything will be remedied for me. And he's trying to say to them, listen, if you're going to come after me, there's going to be a cross to bear in that life. There are going to be some sacrifices that have to be made. And I want you to know that you've got to take on those challenges along the way. So, he offers the idea. There's a guy out here. If he's going to build a tower, he better first count the cost, or else he gets the foundation built and realizes he doesn't have enough money to build the rest of it, and everybody's going to come by and laugh at him and say, look at that. And all. Yeah, it happens sometimes. He says if you're king and you got an army and you're going to go out to war, which was a common thing in his day, then you better figure out how big the other guy's army is before you go out. And if that's too big an army that you're going up against, then probably better to work out some sort of peaceful arrangement. It's pretty good advice. Both of those are found in Luke, the 14th chapter. So we think about that sometimes. It's important that we look ahead and see what we're trying to do. What are you trying to accomplish? And what is it that's out in front of you? You know, if you're going to ride a bicycle, it's a lot of fun. Nothing more freeing than being out riding a bicycle. But you know what? You can fall off a bicycle. A certain bump in the road, a certain crack in the pavement, a lot of things can cause you to fall. As a newspaper boy, I rode mine on the ice one time with a basket full of newspapers. Hit some ice, tried to turn, newspapers, bicycle in one direction, newspapers went one direction, bicycle went another direction, and I think I went in a totally different direction. Well, that's just me. I'm not saying that, well, never mind. You understand. You got to think ahead a little bit about some things in life, and it's important that we truly grasp what it is that lies out in front of us as best we can. But who would know? Who would know exactly what is out there? What is it that is coming our way? What is it that we can figure? You know, I had some friends when I was about 12 years old, 1967. Oh, boy, that makes me old. Anyway, 1967, they had built a deck, an upper deck in their tree house their father had built for them. And I came by one day and happened in the yard with them, and they had hung a rope from the branch in the tree and put a big stick across it, hanging at the bottom of that rope, and it was swinging down out, and it was a great swing. And I thought, man, that looks like, I said, come on, we got up there, and finally I got up in the tree with them, and I got ready to swing down. I grabbed hold of the branch, and they said, just grab it and swing, and I did. Feet pulled up and everything, but you know what? I didn't take into account I was a little bigger than my friends. Yeah, you got the picture. The ground came up pretty fast. Good looking face plant at the bottom of that swing, and there I lay. And like the guy who didn't have the money to finish building his tower, there were my friends up in the treehouse above when they realized I wasn't dead, having a good laugh at my expense. So the thought in my mind is there are things that we can figure. Next time I held higher on the rope. There are things that we can figure. And one of the things that you need to do is it says look before you leap. But in reality is measure the rope before you swing. Sometimes reading through the book of Proverbs, we're reminded that there are a lot of things that you can see and recognize and take care of, if you will. That's what the Proverbs are all about. Recognize the consequences of these things. If you take this action, then something's going to happen. And so, how do we do that? Well, something I want to give to you today, and I want you to think about, is this. Tell your story to your loved ones. I've shared that before. It came to mind just the other night when some of the grandchildren, 3 of the grandsons were spending the night at the house. One of them came down and wanted to make sure I was going to come up and tell them a story. Sometimes I tell them made-up stories. I got there and they wanted me to tell one about a dragon and so forth, and I've made up stories and told them. Usually they're pretty short, and we have a little good time, and it helps them to settle down a little bit before they go to sleep. But sometimes I tell them real-life stories. And the reason I tell them that is I want them to know things that really did happen. Not just fantasy, those are great. But the real-life stories. Because you know, some of the things that mean the most to me today, and this is why, some of the things that mean the most to me today are from the times when I would travel along with my father, and he would tell me some story, some silly event, some kind of challenging event, something about his father or his family or his mother that took place so many years before. And it helped me understand, and it helps us understand things that happened far before us. Give them a picture. Give them a story. It may not seem all that big or all that important to you, and it may be somewhat buried in the recesses of your mind, but dig it out and share that little story. It may take only a moment. It may take much longer. It may take several times to tell it all. But tell the story. Jesus said, you got to count the cost before you get into it. If we want our children to understand the costs, we need to tell them our stories. There's some really good ones. I'd love to tell you some of those that my mother or my dad told me, or even my grandmother. She was a pretty good storyteller. My grandfather, on my mother's side, liked to say, when we would say, tell us a story, he'd say, well, when I was a little girl, and he began every story that way. Make it fun. Make it enjoyable. But tell the story. And that way they learn some experiences that they have not yet had, and it helps them. It helps them do this. It helps them measure the rope before they swing. You see what I mean? That's what Jesus is trying to tell us. It's the old adage, look before you leap. I just kind of twist it a little bit. Measure the rope before you swing so you don't do a face plant below the treehouse. Hey guys, I'm glad you're with me today. It's a great Thursday, beautiful day, beautiful time of the year, and I hope you are having a fantastic day. Just remember, measure the rope before you swing. Hey, I'll see you again down the road, and glad you were with me today, and there you are in my little world for a moment.